All right, welcome everybody back to another episode of DeFi Revelations. We've got a really interesting episode for you today. We've got Tascha from INFINIT on. She's the founder of the protocol, and we get into it. We get into the business model, on the infrastructure side of what they're building, which is basically like a next generation developer tool to really simplify the process of building a DeFi dApp, which is incredibly exciting. They've got existing partners very early in the life cycle of the company, like Athena, EtherFi, Renzo, some really heavy hitters, in the yield world right now. So it's really interesting to hear Tascha's viewpoints on where they've been, on how they view deploying the product to different sales pipelines, different ways they can expose the product to users, developers, chains, and it was a really awesome conversation. So I think you guys are going to enjoy it a lot. Obviously, if you guys enjoy the episode, we encourage you to like and subscribe. And I will talk to you next time on the next episode of DeFi Revelations. So thanks, everybody. All right, welcome everybody back to another episode of DeFi Revelations. For those that don't know me, I'm Kirk, your humble host. I'm the head of BD with Revelo Intel, and with me today we've got Tascha, the founder of INFINIT. How are you?
Hi, great, doing well.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today. We're excited to kind of dig into what you guys have been doing, and getting into into init and getting into INFINIT and everything in between. So yeah, I always like to start things off with a little bit about you. Maybe tell us about how you got into crypto and maybe what inspired you to build INFINIT, at the end of the day.
Yeah, sure. So, started my career in finance, doing a bunch of things from M&A, IPO, debt financing, and then stumbled my way into product management, and then crypto. So, a bunch of different aspects that I think really help, to build the apps since we've been building in 2020. So that's maybe a quick like rundown of my background. In 2020, we founded a project called Alpha Finance with the same co-founder as well. So we've been building, a lot of dApps, a lot of DeFi since then, and I think that pretty much led us to realize that every time we have to build a new DeFi dApps, whether it's on Ethereum, on different kinds of EVM, it really like you have to reinvent a lot of things, right? So a lot of times it may have the common denominator that hey, like if there was to be like this infrastructure to be existent that can help push you through go to market a lot faster, that would be a lot helpful, like a lot more efficient, a lot more cost efficient, and really speed the development time, right? So that really much like is the initial point where we realized that hey, like why do developers and builders as well, we only have two choices now, right? So you have to build everything from scratch, reinvent a lot of the things, and now we have like 70 plus chains or even 100 chains now, like L1s and L2s combined, right? And different chains and different L2s have some nuances that are different as well. So like a lot of those nuances are something that could have been reformed to be a lot more uniform if there were to be like a uniform infrastructure, right? So, but there's not existing of that infrastructure yet, so you have to reinvent a lot of things. That's one option. The other option is okay, you can fork other protocols, which is okay, but the downside of that is that a lot of times you don't fully understand the code, and when you want to add new functionalities, when you want to scale, you have to make adjustment to the code, which can lead to potential negative incidents or anything like that that you may not want to lead to. So developers and builders are stuck with these two options, right? Where we see that hey, like nowadays there are so many ways that you can have a roll up. For example, you don't have to build your own roll up. You can use different roll ups as a service, and same for different kind of like infrastructure services. Like you don't need to reinvent a lot of things, right? So we start to question why can't we apply these concepts to DeFi as well? For example, we don't have to limit developers and builders to only build things from scratch or fork things, but if we create a uniform DeFi infrastructure and abstract a lot of the complexities away, it can help a lot of like development of the apps, and also can help chains as well, because now a lot of chains are also looking to have a lot of growth to their DeFi ecosystem.
Yep. Gotcha. Yeah, so I guess, and it makes total sense, I guess, and that just comes from my time before Revelo Intel working for a DeFi protocol, and I still do to this day. So I totally understand what you're saying. When it comes to, you've kind of got to make these trade-offs, at the end of the day, like which way are you going to go? And so, like, obviously, I think that's a big need that Infinite is kind of coming in and kind of looking to serve, right? So I guess, getting into it a little bit further, right? Maybe you can give us, the elevator pitch for Infinite. Talk about the modules, behind Infinite and how you guys make things very, very easy for developers, and kind of take us behind the hood a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So Infinite is the first DeFi abstraction layer. And what I mean by that is that it abstracts away a lot of the complexities to build a whole new customized dApp. Or if you want to scale the existing dApp, you can also do so with our infrastructure. All of these enable serving not only like completely new dApps, but also like existing dApps as well. So imagine, if you are already like a live dApp, you can plug in with our infrastructure and scale a lot easier. Add new functionalities, plug and play, and create different customizations. So that's, I think, a high level concept of Infinite, right? A lot of the time, different chains also find, strong need for Infinite as well. Not just existing chains, but also new chains. So new chains can bootstrap new DeFi ecosystem a lot faster if Infinite were to integrate with that chain. Existing chains also benefit because there are a lot of dApps already on that chain. Infinite can help drive interoperability and composability among those dApps. So I would say like our infrastructure and our approach actually benefit both, whether you're a new dApp or existing, or even like you're a new chain or existing chain. Um, yeah, so I think hopefully that helps give more color to what Infinite is, and then digging a bit deeper on the technical side, right? So how it works is there are three modules within Infinite. The first module is called intent module, in which it takes in the intent of developers in terms of what are the functionalities, what are the features, what kind of protocols do you want to build, what are those protocols functions, what are those actions. So taking all these requirements, and all of these can be taken from whether it's a developer portal or plug and play front end that we have that we're building as well. So once this intent module takes in the command, it converts into a language that Infinite understands, so that the other modules can interact and understand this language. And then after that, the second module is what we call abstraction module. In this abstraction module, there are different blocks. So different smart contracts are categorized into different actions, different sub actions, different parameters, different categories, so that all of these are being more and more like plug and play, so that you can be able to give the input, give the command, and abstraction module would be able to know, okay, given this demand, you need this block and you need this particular action of this block to interact with this parameter in this kind of way. So very much a lot more comprehensive way in building a dApp, or building things where things are like more plug and play. And then finally, the output of the abstraction module is a series of smart contracts that perform the intent, right? And then this output is sent to the last module, which is called chain interaction module. So this chain interaction module handles everything on behalf of the developer to deploy things on chain, which means that you as a developer who use Infinite infrastructure, you don't need to set up the deployer, you don't need to set up chain provider or like all these configurations, and you don't need to run the deployment process. Everything is being done and abstracted away by this module. So all these three, modules work together to, as a result, enable you to build a dApp that you want to build, enable you to scale and add functionalities to your existing protocols on the integrated chains.
Gotcha. So a couple of questions, come to my mind there. And I guess it's just surrounding some of like the third party services that you typically need for deploying these apps. So like oracles, for example. How do you guys have like a set of oracles that you guys are have obviously integrated and you're very experienced with, and that kind of comes along with the Infinite package when I'm, I guess, when I'm building an app on Infinite. I'm assuming that's how it works, right? So where do the choices come into play? Like, so for example, if I'm like I know one of the clients you guys have is Athena, for example, right? Do I have my choice of like hey, I want to use the Infinite infrastructure to build my app, but I want my own Oracle. I have an Oracle provider that I'm already familiar with, or I'm comfortable with, and I want to bring them along into the into the stack. Is it customizable on that level as well?
Yeah, so I think you can think of it as two levels. So the first level is that on a particular chain there are supported oracles already. So those already work with Infinite by default. This is not inclusive of the any fees you have to pay the oracles, right? So like that's something else. So you still have to pay the oracle fees and everything. On the second level is that okay, if let's say it's a special case or like customized case where you're super close knit with this particular oracle that is not yet live on that chain, and when you want to go to that chain, like Ethena, when going to a new chain and they want to onboard, their partner Oracle as well, that's something that we can also work with that Oracle to plug that Oracle in with our Infinite infrastructure. So it takes a bit longer, but not long, like 2 days additional.
Pair Protocol is the first and only trading platform for narrative trading. Their technology unlocks the ability for anyone to pair trade. For example, if you think ETH will outperform Cardano, you can long ETH ADA in one click with leverage. Or perhaps you think Pepe will continue to outperform Doge. You can long Pepe Doge. Again, all in one transaction. The combinations are endless. Learn more at beta.pair.garden. Gotcha. Okay, that's interesting. And then I guess the second question I had was, I'm assuming that this has some very, very positive effects on like auditing, right? Like auditing costs, et cetera. Because like if assuming that obviously the Infinite infrastructure has kind of been through that process already. As a developer, am I already inheriting some of that safety or some of that security because you guys have already been through that with your auditors? So I'm assuming that would either eliminate auditing, or at the very least it's going to like severely reduce the amount of like auditing costs that I have to take on as the protocol that's building the app.
Yeah, correct. So that's correct. So a lot, pretty much, all of the smart contracts in abstraction module that I mentioned have been, there are like two types of smart contracts, right? So one is like the smart contracts of industry vetted protocols, and these are ultimately been through launched, used, a lot of millions and billions of TVL on these smart contracts, right? So these are the types of contracts that get added to Infinite modules. We don't taper with those contracts. What we do is we wrapped different language within Infinite. So we use TypeScript to make sure that things are categorized, like how I explained earlier, in such a way that people would be able to plug and play with these contracts a lot easier. So that's the first type of contracts, right? The second type of contracts is assuming, this is more of a minority type. So if there are like particular use case or new DeFi use case that we see that hey, like this must be added, and this can very much strengthen a lot of different use case in DeFi, then this would be something that we develop and we add to Infinite Stack. But before getting added to the Infinite Stack, we have to go through like minimum of 4 audits, including one public testing as well. So like Code Arena, for example. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, no, that's it's super interesting. I'm just trying to think of like all of the advantages and all the secondary effects, of using Infinite. That, I guess, that leads me to my next question, which would be like the business model, behind Infinite, right? So, where does Infinite kind of like take its fees, or where do you guys kind of generate that value for the business at the end of the day?
Yeah. So we take protocol fee split, which means that whichever functionality that gets powered by Infinite, or if it's the whole protocol, then it would be the whole protocol fees. Then we would take percentages cut of those. So ultimately, I think this is a very much a way to align incentives. We don't charge fees upfront when you are still haven't benefited it from us. We make sure that hey, like we help you grow, we help you scale. As you grow, as you scale, as you get your dApps built, scaled, then we also benefit from your from helping you grow. Yeah, and then all of these also come with different services that get provided to customers post launch as well. So, for example, different off chain systems, different monitoring system, different data indexing system that you actually no need to maintain, and you don't have to write your code to like index these data. So all these also come as a service post launch. Um, so ultimately, like it doesn't just end at the launch phase.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, and that makes perfect sense. And yeah, I think you hit it on the head when you said incentive alignment. I think often in DeFi, I don't think not every founder, not every group like thinks about incentive alignment, and then you think that you've got this perfect product, right? And then in actuality, like some of the shareholder groups are all like have different views or they have different priorities, and then it ends up becoming a problem like further on down the road. Um, but yeah, so that makes perfect sense. As far as scalability goes, obviously, I think you touched on earlier, like obviously it's EVM compatible. So like how many chains do you guys support, or are you able to just support all of the EVM chains, by default? But I guess outside of the EVM, even like how scalable is it? Or are there plans to expand to like Solana, for example? Some of these new performant L1s that are coming out as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I think in the near term, we focus more on EVM compatibles, just because it's so much easier, as well as there's a lot more demand that we see. Maybe because there are a lot more EVM compatible machines as well. I think in the midterm is where we're looking to expand to non EVM. Of course, Solana and many other upcoming ones we're going to be on the lookout for which one would be interesting, at a given time that we are looking to expand. But for now, we're focusing on EVM compatible.
Gotcha. And as far as like the types of apps that can be built, with Infinite, I was reading through, your docs. I saw obviously like money markets, right? I think I saw, being able to kind of set up, one click looping strategies, was another. But like where does it end? Like, can I come build a perpetuals market? With Infinite, so I guess what types of apps are you able to build on Infinite right now?
Yeah, yeah. So you can imagine, I would say there are two phases, right? So the phase one is ultimately the infinite, well, not phase one, but the level one is that ultimately anything in infinite would enable these dApps, which, for example, are like money markets, DEXs, leverage trading, yield protocol, leverage farming, perp DEX, like what you mentioned, or even a token, yield trading. So things will continue to get added to infinite stack because we continue to add more to our infrastructure. So as things get added more, then you can build these DApps as well. Within each category, there can also be different nuances that enable you to differentiate even further. For example, within money market, there can be a type of peer-to-peer money market, or more of a peer-to-pool, different kind of design, or even a money market that focuses only on long tail or like meme coins. So I think all these are up to you to decide how you want to find your edge, or like what's your project's differentiation. So that's the first level, right? The second level is actually the composability among these dApps that I mentioned. And this is also where it benefits to be built and scaled from Infinite. So the composability that I mentioned is, for example, if you are looking to build a perp dex, right? The perp dex that you build from Infinite would automatically understand and know the type of money market indexes from within Infinite as well, because of the shared commonality of the stack, right? Which means that if you want your LP token of your perp dex to be supported on different money markets or different dexes, it would automatically be able to, because the different money markets and dexes powered by Infinite already know and already understand and familiar with the this type of LP token of your perp dex. So I think based on that, then you can create and customize. Hey, like what can I do with this fact, and how can I create different functionalities and composability among other protocols as well.
When it comes to like I guess the sales pipeline for Infinite, where are you guys focusing most of your attention? Are you guys trying to attract developers, or are you guys trying to, because in my mind, like Infinite could almost be like a substitute for like an SDK, right? A lot of these L1s or L2s, they have their SDKs, they have their developer kits to make it easy for people to build, on their blockchain. But it seems like, with Infinite, you could plug that in right there, and that can be a point of sale, right, or a pipeline, for Infinite. So I guess, are you guys, and this could be, an all encompassing answer, obviously, because I'm sure you're focused on all of it. But like what is the dream scenario for you guys? Is it being, I guess, very, very close with all of these L1s and these L2 foundations at the infrastructure level, at the point of entry into the ecosystem? Or are you guys going, like the B2B route where you're going kind of like door to door trying to sell to developers and existing protocols?
Yeah, I think I would say three strategies actually. So based on, so strategy one, is targeting the chain, right? But
Yep.
within the chain itself, there are two types of chains that we categorize. The types of chains that already have growing ecosystems, and the type of chains that are up and coming, aka have a launch, just launch. So the chains that already have growing system, then we go in, plug in with the chain, integrate with the chain, and ultimately help the apps already on that chain to scale. And what I mean by scaling is that either there are multiple things that they already want to build. Those things can be built from Infinite. Save so much time, save so much cost. So ultimately, it becomes a win-win scenario. A lot of the times when these dApps on existing chains are already added to Infinite, it would also attract more protocols to also like use Infinite as well, because it would enable them to compose with these existing dApps a lot easier. So that's a strategy for existing chains, right? For new chains, this is where we target more on the ecosystem side, so on the chain side. So I think making sure that the chain enable us to become the de facto DeFi infrastructure for that chain would be very much the ideal scenario, in which a lot of the projects, whether it's the incubator projects or different projects launched on that chain, should be starting their journey from Infinite. So that's the ideal scenario as well. So I think that wraps up like the first type. The second type pretty much is more on, I think, thinking a bit step further, in which, because our product actually enable you to build DeFi with JavaScript, with TypeScript, or eventually later this year we're going to launch a plug and play front end that enable you to build dApps from the plug and play front end itself, right? So imagine WordPress, that you can build website from WordPress. You would also have the same experience when building DeFi. I think this would actually be very strong, and able us to attract a lot more developers, and also not even non developers themselves, but those who are looking to enter Web3 to build with Infinite, right? So this is more of a midterm goal, in which we target all these different building houses, or builder houses, incubators, accelerators, where we become the de facto go-to infrastructure that they think of and they use to build anything in Web3.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, we had an Oracle's episode, like, I think last week, we had Redstone on, and I was asking the same thing, because it fascinates me, where the different, like, sales pipelines can come from, when we're talking about some of the infrastructure, parts of a blockchain. So no, I mean, that makes perfect sense. And I think you talked about, helping scale like existing chains. Can you guys talk about maybe like some of your experiences with like the Mantle ecosystem so far? Like, I know, Mantle is kind of where, obviously in it, I think, is on Mantle. I think you guys helped Athena, expand to Mantle. So how have things been, working with the Mantle team? And I guess why was that such a natural fit for you guys, with Mantle?
Yeah, so I think this has been very good. Mentor team has been very supporting. Community is also great. I think a lot of the users and community that we feel are more DeFi heavy users actually, which also benefit a lot of our target dApps and target developers as well as users. Yeah, so I think natural fit, I would say, just because of how Mantle's strategy are very much DeFi heavy. Whether it's their treasury, using their treasury to benefit from different staking services, or different yield opportunities, and those kickstart different DeFi protocols that want to be built on Mantle to take advantage of those DeFi yield opportunities that Mantle create. For example, they uh, enable people who stake or people who hold MEs on Mantle to get different points of other ecosystem projects. So I think a lot of these actually drive a lot of the dApps that we also work with, like Ethena, and many other like One Delta, Thruster, Thruster's on Blast, Acne. Yeah, so I think natural fit for Mantle. Also, we also have been working with and supporting more chains as well, and to be announced. What are those chains that we're helping a lot with, and yeah, I think we're exciting to apply the approach and the framework that we did with Mantle that have been I think very successful to other chains, and it will be a very win-win scenario for both the chain, the dApps, and also for Infinite.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I was very curious about that, and I've heard really good things about Mantle. Love what they're doing over there. Actually, I think they're in a great position moving forward to continue scaling. And then I guess the same question, I guess for Athena, right? Obviously Athena's been a big name, since they came on the scene here very recently. It seems like forever now, but I mean they're very very young, in terms of like a protocol, but they were able to attract so much TVL, right? So quickly. So I guess what did they see was the main advantage of using Infinite at the end of the day? Like, why do you think they decided to jump in with Infinite to scale to Mantle, and like what functionalities were they looking for? When it came to deploying through Infinite on Mantle.
Mm, yeah. So I would say, with Ethena or, even with Renzo, EtherFi, it.
Vertex is a lightning fast order book DEX offering spot, perpetuals, and money markets with unified cross margin and a vertically integrated product suite. With Vertex Edge, users can tap into the power of shared cross chain order book liquidity across Arbitrum, Blast, and Mantle, while earning trading rewards in VRTX, ARB, and MNT. Traders can access over 50 spot and perpetual markets alongside the GMCI 30 and meme indices, with low fee trading and capital efficiency, all while preserving self custody and on chain settlement. Learn more at vertexprotocol.com.
Like in these cases where you have this stablecoin or your LST or LRT that you want to expand and you want to get adoption, right? When you drive the adoption to a new chain, like you have that short window to make sure that you um, not just launch a token on that chain, but you need to make sure there are different mechanics in place that help drive trading volume, help drive liquidity provisioning. Because otherwise, if you miss that window, then it's very hard to re-engage a lot of the community back again, right? So I would say time is very key essence for these projects, which means that when these projects go to multi-chain expansion, it benefits so much because they can just plug in their token contract with Infinite, determine what are the intent that they want to have to drive um, trading volume, liquidity provisioning. For example, different yield strategies. How do those yield strategies work? What are the dApps on that chain that this yield strategy have to work with, and how all those things become the intent that gets input into the intent modules. Again, the three modules work together to give the output of that functionalities to these projects within a day. So ultimately, like it saves so much time, saves so much cost as well for Ethena and for all these projects to scale on that chain. So yeah, I think a lot of these can be applied to different scenario and different chains as well. And I think we have seen quite a successful case for Ethena.
Yeah, no, I think that makes perfect sense. And again, I think obviously it synergizes really well, right? Obviously within it already being on Mantle, you can kind of tap into that market. When it came to maybe scaling EtherFi or scaling Renzo or scaling Athena, because I think everybody at the end of the day wants leverage, right? And if you can give them leverage, as quickly as possible, with you launching onto the chain, then that's a huge advantage, right? Like I think back, and it's funny, like I think DeFi has grown up so much over the last few years, because if I think back to like DeFi summer and like really like the period of time like shortly after that, when you saw projects trying to go cross chain, Frax is a good example of this, right? Where they were going cross chain, but then like you had to spend so much time integrating a money market, integrating maybe, pairs on dexes, right, or building liquidity on that chain. And if you can cut down on all of that, integration and dev time, and by multiples, right, then I think it really, really spurs your growth, through all of that. So yeah, it's spot on, as far as, product market fit for Infinite, obviously. So yeah, no, I think it makes perfect sense. One of my questions, I guess, is moving forward, right? Like, what are some of the incentives that you guys have your eye on to try to attract developers, attract users? Like, I saw in your docs that there's, I think, a to be determined token coming out at some point, a points program. Take us through maybe that phase, into the future a little bit, if you can. Obviously, I know some of this stuff's probably, still being argued about, behind closed doors. So, but maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I think on a very high level, we value both developers, chains, and users. So even though our product is DeFi infrastructure and very much B2B, dealing with chains, dealing with developers, or different dApps, we also care a lot, and I think make sure that we engage with end users as well. So I think ultimately anyone listening to this or watching this, don't worry that, hey, if you're not a developer, if you're a DeFi users, if you are a community contributor, are you going to be able to participate and benefit from the growth of Infinite? We have plans for those to make sure that we grow not just customers but also grow community as well. So I think that's gives a bit of glimpse into how we're thinking of this, and I think ultimately it would be a fun one. I think people are quite tired of different mechanics of point system in the past already, so we're taking all those learning from different projects and applying it to be something more fun, something more engaging and more interactive.
No, it makes perfect sense. From a competitive landscape, I guess, looking across the competitive landscape for something like Infinite, like, who would you say are your closest competitors, or are there any? Because this is the maybe one of the first times I've heard about, infrastructure of this type, coming to market. But how are you guys seeing the competitive landscape? Like, obviously there's other infrastructure, out there for, I think, vault strategies, stuff like that, things like Veda with EtherFi. But that's almost like it's different. It's way different than what Infinite is building. But I guess, are there other competitors out there in this space, or do you guys kind of feel that it's pretty much wide open right now?
Yeah, I actually think it's quite wide open, mainly because what we offer is infrastructure that abstracts how you build and scale and add different functionalities, not particularly pertaining to one type of dApp as well, not one use case. I think if you nail, if you look at zoom in for like one needle, and you see that, hey, like this particular use case, like this function at money market, maybe there is a protocol that serves that particular function itself. But I think a lot of the times now where we see DeFi going is that a lot of things are needing to be more composable as opposed to fine tune that one function itself, right? If that one function works really well but is not as composable with the other different pieces and puzzles out there, then it very much going to be hard for you to scale and for you to continue to gain market share as a D app as well. Yeah, so based on that and based on how we're building this infrastructure, it is very much a pretty green field. And I would say it is also a green field because it takes a lot of understanding of DeFi complexities, and takes years of experience to build in DeFi to also understand, okay, like how can we abstract in such a way that makes sense, and also not introduce new security concerns as well.
Right. And the other thing that's been on my mind too, and I don't know if you guys have thought about this, but you mentioned obviously like the composability factor of anything that's built with Infinite obviously is more easily composed with other apps. But even taking that a step further, as far as like the omni-chain future, that everybody sees coming, right? Like, I could see a world where, like, Infinite would offer kind of like the cross-chain or omni-chain messaging part along with, obviously developing your app. So that way it's kind of like this all-in-one package where, I can come to Infinite, and if I want to deploy Omnichain, I just build my app, through Infinite, and I can deploy, omni-chain on any networks that Infinite supports. Have you guys thought about that at all? Or I might be thinking, way outside the box here, but I don't know, that came to my mind, when I'm thinking about how to improve the UX overall, which I think, your model kind of leans into that as well. Trying to fix some of the UX problems as well, on the developer side, to build these apps and make them more seamless for users. But have you guys thought about that at all?
Yeah, I think you nailed it pretty much. Although I think how we're seeing this is more of like multiple potential paths. I think ultimately the short term adoption and the midterm adoption would also drive how we lead the long term. Because I think we can only plan so much in especially in crypto and in DeFi too. So I think we have different speculations of how the world would be, and within those speculations, we also have different ideas of how we want Infinite to be to serve well in that world, right? So, for example, if it becomes an omni-chain world instead of consolidating to only a few chains, then I think exploring to serve deployment on cross chains a lot easier, or even ultimately being the place where you are able to not you don't even have to like port your protocol to another chain, but you can only just be on one protocol on one chain, and it can also be applied to launch on like non EVM. So like that's something that potentially, if the world becomes omni-chain future, then something that we will want to expand into, so like abstract even more deeper level, and serving that world, right? However, let's say if we see that okay, it's going to be more of a concentrated chains, and we don't know which way it's going to be, right? But if it's going to be that world that we're going to be in, then I think how we're looking at this is more of like we power a lot of the DeFi that are on those chains, and ultimately because we already are the backbone of all these DeFi protocols on that chain, we can ultimately take it further by abstracting a lot of the complexities for the end users, because all the end users would be on a few chains if that's the world, right? So we already have all these protocols in our hand. We can make it a lot easily for users to not having to switch among different things, abstract away all the complexities on the user's end as well, and that can be the next step for Infinite, if it becomes that world of concentrated chains.
Awesome. Well, I think this is a good place to wrap up. Honestly, covered everything that I think I had on my brain. Did you have any closing thoughts, Tasha, as far as maybe some things on the roadmap that have you the most excited? I know you mentioned possibly some announcements coming out for some chain expansion, but what's got you the most excited coming up for Infinite here in the next few months?
Yeah, I think we have packed pipelines of integrating chains, dApps, as well as also like more details on the points program. Yeah, so I think have something for different kinds of groups, whether you're retail or community contributor or dApps or chains. We have a lot that are installed. Yeah, and I think the final thought would be if anyone's listening, watching this, please feel free to also follow our Twitter, join our Discord. A lot of the news and updates would be shared there. Yeah, and there's going to be different roles that are giving on the Discord as well.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, and I guess I'll just double click on that too. If you're listening to this episode, check out the show notes. Obviously, we'll link where you can find Infinite, where you can find more information on Tasha as well. But obviously, Revelo Intel will also be here for you. We're going to be coming out with quite a bit of content on Infinite. So hopefully that can help you with your journey as a user if you're interested in the ecosystem or interested in learning more. Um, and yeah, we appreciate you coming on, Tasha. I know time's precious, so thanks a lot for coming on. And for everybody else listening, I guess we'll see you the next time on the next episode of DeFi Revelations. All right, take care, everybody.